Words and pictures. Words and pictures.
Hello. Today's programme is full of fairy tales, and they've all been written by one very famous writer. His name was Hans Christian Andersen, and I found a picture of him in this book. This picture was painted in 1836, a long time ago, and it was painted in Denmark, where he lived. Hans Christian Andersen loved playing with toy theatres, and I've made one here from a cardboard box, and I've decorated it with trees and rushes and a grassy bank. And in this riverside scene, I'm going to tell you one of Hans Christian Andersen's stories. It's called The Ugly Duckling. There was once a mother duck who was very proud of her ducklings. But one duckling was not like all the others. Everyone was unkind to him. They said he was ugly. One day, the ugly duckling was so unhappy that he went away and hid. All through the cold winter, the ugly duckling remained hidden in the reeds by the side of the river, until in spring, 3 swans came swimming by. The swans were the most beautiful creatures that the ugly duckling had ever seen. He didn't care if they called him names, he just wanted to be near to them. So he came out of the reeds. And as he did, he looked down and saw he was no longer an ugly duckling, but had grown into a beautiful swan. The other swans thought he was beautiful too. He was so happy. Even though he'd started life as an ugly duckling, he'd grown into a beautiful swan. As well as writing stories, Hans Christian Andersen enjoyed making things out of paper. He would cut out pictures and patterns, and I've made one here. There, a lot of fish swimming in the sea. And Hans Christian Andersen wrote a story about someone who lived with the fish in the sea. It's called The Little Mermaid. Way out to sea in the deep blue water lived a princess pure and fair. She swam with her sisters in a beautiful palace, and they watched the fishes there. For they were mermaids, pretty as can be, and they swished their tails as they swam in the sea. The mermaids heard of people on earth who lived in cities on the land. As they sat on the rocks, they watched the ships, or played by the golden sand. For they were mermaids, pretty as can be, and they swished their tails as they swam in the sea. One starry night, the little mermaid rose to the surface of the sea. She saw on a ship a handsome prince, and she loved him instantly. But she was a mermaid, pretty as can be, so she swished her tail as she swam in the sea. A storm blew up, the ship was wrecked, the prince was thrown overboard. But the mermaid came and held him safe as the waves and the wild wind roared. For she was a mermaid, pretty as can be, so she swished her tail as she swam in the sea. She took the prince to a sandy shore, and she laid him on the ground. Then she swam away and watched from afar till she saw that he was found. The mermaid longed to marry this prince, though her tail was like a fish, and she wanted to live with him on earth. To have legs was her greatest wish. So she went to visit the fierce sea witch, who lived in an undersea wood.
Now listen to me.
The sea witch said,
This spell is bad and good. I can help you grow some human legs instead of a fishy tail. But there's a price that you must pay if in your quest you fail. You must be sure the prince loves you and takes you as his wife. For if he marries someone else, then you must lose your life. Not only that, each time you step, you'll feel the stab of a knife. So just be sure you think quite hard before you change your life. One final thing I need to say. My voice is growing weak. Your voice I'll take as my reward, so then you will not speak.
The mermaid paled at the witch's words, but she knew what she wanted to do. So she gave up her voice and drank the spell, and beautiful legs she grew. But having no voice, she couldn't speak to the prince she loved so true. And though he thought her beautiful, of her love he never knew. She tried to tell her love for him, with her eyes she smiled in vain. And she never showed each step she took, gave her sharp and stabbing pain. And then one day the prince was wed to a princess pure and fair. And the mermaid sisters called to her, but where was their beautiful hair? They knew that she would have to die, and they wanted to save her life. So they'd been to the witch, who'd taken their hair in exchange for a very sharp knife. Take this, they said, and kill the prince, only then will you be free to have your mermaid tail once more and return to live in the sea. But the mermaid loved the handsome prince, so she threw the knife away and jumped into the foaming waves at the dawning of the day. Then all at once she saw the sun above the waves so high. Then she felt herself go soaring up into the clouds in the sky. Way out to sea in the deep blue water lived the mermaid, pure and fair. And high in the sky on a beautiful cloud their sister watches there, for she was a mermaid, pretty as can be, and she swished her tail as she swam in the sea. A mermaid, pretty as can be, and she swished her tail as she swam in the sea. The Little Mermaid is one of Hans Christian Andersen's best-known fairy tales. And here's another one you might know. It's called The Princess on the Pea. There was once a prince who wanted to marry a princess. But she had to be a real princess. The prince looked all over the world to find a princess. Would this be the one? No. He found many princesses, But not one of them pleased him. Oh no! None of them seemed like a real princess to him. So sadly, the prince came home to the castle. Oh dear, he had so wanted to find a real princess. That night, there was a fierce storm. Along to the palace came a young girl. She was looking for somewhere to shelter from the storm. The king came to the door. He saw the young girl standing there looking wet and tired. The girl said she was a real princess, so the king told her she must come inside and sleep in a comfortable bed. The queen thought she would find out if the girl was indeed a real princess. So, without saying anything, she put a little green pea on the bed where the girl was going to sleep. Then, she put a mattress on top of the pea. And then she piled more and more mattresses and duvets on top of that. The queen was very pleased. The bed was so high that the girl had to climb up a ladder to get into it. Then she tried to get to sleep. She tossed and she turned, but she just couldn't get comfortable at all. She hardly had a wink of sleep all night. The next morning, the queen asked the girl if she had slept well. No. She said she'd had a terrible night. It felt as if she was sleeping on something small and hard. Then the queen knew that the girl must indeed be a real princess. Only a real princess could feel a little green pea through all those mattresses and all those duvets. The prince fell in love and married the princess because he knew that she was a real princess. And that, so they say, is a true story. I've only had a chance to tell you 3 of Hans Christian Andersen's stories, but there are many, many more. See if you can find some. Bye-bye.